What if I told you you could design an entire brand identity, a visual identity, with typography, colors, mockups, fonts, a whole system without even touching a computer? Sounds crazy, but I think it's possible. In fact, I'm going to give it a go. The rules are I'm only going to use my iPad, and I'm going to use Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher and Affinity Photo, the whole suite, to try and create an entire brand system on the iPad. And to make it interesting, I've made up a brand called Harkstone. It's a Scandinavian naturist hotel built on the values of well-being, Nordic hospitality, and sustainability. So let's see if I can pull this off and if a computer-free workflow is the future of design. With that in mind, I started by jotting down a few keywords in Affinity Designer. I wanted words to capture the essence of Harkstone. This step is crucial because it helps shape the brand's personality before even thinking about the logos or visuals. I focused on words that reflect Harkstone's core themes: nature-inspired, tranquility, organic, warmth, and sustainability. Each of these words acts as a creative guidepost, making sure every design decision aligns with the brand's identity. Once I had my keywords locked in, the next step was mood boarding. This is where things start to take a shape visually, gathering textures, colors, and typefaces, and just imagery that evokes the feeling of a Scandinavian naturist retreat. Let me show you how all that came together. For any of you who haven't mood boarded before, it's essentially aligning yourself visually with an inspiration spread. So everything on there should inspire you or have a certain vibe or mood that directs you towards the end result of the brand that you're designing. Normally when I'm mood boarding, I'll just go ahead and grid up in my design software a little grid page where I can just drag and drop all of my imagery. But this is where I hit my first real challenge. Normally, I just grab images from Google, throw them into a whiteboard and start piecing together the brand's visual direction. Simple, right? Well, not so much on an iPad. Without the usual desktop workflow, I had to rethink my approach. That's when I got a bit creative. I plugged in a monitor, my Apple Studio display, my mouse, my MX Master 3, and after some trial and error, I discovered that I could build a functioning whiteboard in Canva. People do Canva down, but they've got amazing software. They've got an infinite whiteboard on there that you can collaborate with clients or other people in your design team. It's pretty insane. Surprisingly, it worked really well, the infinite whiteboard. I was able to just click and drag on my mouse and just drag images in, which worked nicely. And it felt like I was working on a computer. I felt like I was kind of cheating a little bit. Not only did it allow me to organize my ideas visually, but it also kept my entire process contained within the iPad setup. This meant I was officially designing already a full identity system without a computer. This gave me hope that I was actually able to do just the simplistic things of just organizing and finding inspiration on my iPad, just as I normally would with my computer. Once I did that, I did something a bit crazy. I like to set out my mood boards in a nice little grid so I can present it to the client during a call. I went into Affinity Publisher and I made a really quick grid and found out that you can easily just take those images and just drag them in. The imagery that I chose and brought into the infinite whiteboard had nice soft woody tones. It felt very naturey. There was one with an arch in there, which is really important for me. Getting a feel of that wood an outside Scandinavian minimalist feeling, and sometimes even looking just at the interior designs. I was very focused on the interior design of this because it can inspire me a lot for the full identity. From here, the next step is to start sketching. Using my keywords and mood board for inspiration, I came up with various different logos, trying not to make them too similar, but trying not to stray away from themes I've established in my mood board. After sketching a few ideas, I found that my favorites were the arches. I had this inspired feeling from the stained glass archway in the mood board. Just that shape felt very orderly, very in place, very organized. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of things you can put inside of this to make it very unique and to tell a story. I want the actual logo type and the logo design itself to actually tell a story. I had this sort of brainwave as well, that inside these arches you could have stained glass windows, or it could look like a stained glass window. So maybe I could create some cool pattern effects, maybe add some, pastel-y colors to make it look like a stained glass thing, tell a story. The options were endless. I could do a lot with the stained glass thing. But that slowly evolved into trees. And that's because those arches, I just left the bottom shape, the little connector line out, and it became this sort of tree. And I liked this. I wanted to give that nature feeling towards it without it looking like an actual nature park or without it looking like a cafe or anything like that. I wanted it to look like a retreat, making it feel all minimal but naturey. Kind of difficult to do. So with the sketches and the mood board ready, with all my keywords, it was time to start vectorizing the best ideas. This is where things got a bit interesting. Now I know what you're thinking. Vectorizing on an iPad is probably really difficult without one of these bad boys, a mouse for anyone who's listening. But surprisingly, it's really intuitive. Using multi-touch gestures, I could quickly control the pen tool, adjust Bezier curves, and manipulate shapes effortlessly. Some of the gestures are holding 3 fingers on it, and it will like duplicate it but keep it in the same axis. It just becomes so natural over time. Sure, you can use a wireless keyboard and mouse. I even tested it with my Logitech MX keys and MX mouse, but honestly, the best experience came from just using the Apple Pencil 2. A huge game changer in the new iPad with the new Apple Pencil was the pinch feature. Now, if you don't know, the Apple Pencil has this feature where you can pinch and it's got a little haptic in it. And that's another input. You can double tap and you can pinch. Depending on what's selected, it brings up options, letting you quickly convert strokes to curves, group shapes, or even tweak nodes with ease. It makes vector work on the iPad feel really fluid, almost like sculpting rather than clicking and dragging points. Drawing on the iPad is like a no-brainer because it's an Apple Pencil. But this tool with the iPad, with this new pinch feature, is actually pretty game-changing for me. My iPad M1 didn't have the hover feature. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically when if you hover over the screen without actually touching it with the tip of the Apple Pencil, it will register it that it's nearby, so you can highlight certain things. And the programs that I was using were really good at this. It allowed me to essentially select a node, work out where my next point was going to be. The Apple Pencil 2 really feels like a mouse that is more controllable and more comfortable. You don't have to do so much clicking and moving. It feels natural to use. It feels like it's been designed with humans in mind. And after a few hours of working with the iPad, I got really used to the multi-touch gestures of just putting 2 fingers down to keep my anchor points on my handles on the horizontal or vertical axis. If I wanted to duplicate a shape, use 3 fingers and it will duplicate it on that same axis, which is basically just like holding Command and Shift on the computer. Pretty wild. At first I was drawn to the tree-based design, something natural, organic to match Hearthstone's ethos. But the more I refined it, the more it felt cliche. It lacked that distinct timeless quality I wanted. And it kind of also looked like that Google Willow Tree thing that they did, and I didn't want it to look like AI. So I scrapped that idea and went back to one of my original ideas, the arches. There was something about their simplicity and the flow that just felt right. They symbolized openness, passageways, and connection with nature, all key themes for Hearthstone. It seemed like a winning design. So after experimenting with different ideas, it became clear the arch concept was the strongest. It had the perfect balance of simplicity, symbolism, and Scandinavian minimalism that fit Hearthstone's identity. But it wasn't done yet. I went back through my earlier sketches and found a shape that complemented the arch beautifully. By combining the two, I refined the design into something even more unique, something that truly captured the essence of Hearthstone as a brand. The final logo felt intentional. The arch represented openness, transition, and connection with nature, whilst the refined shape gave it a distinct, ownable identity. With the final concept locked in, I started refining the overall look and feel of the brand. A strong logo is just one part of the identity. Typography, that plays a huge role in shaping the personality and tone. For Hearthstone, I needed a typeface that complemented the natural, minimalist aesthetic whilst also feeling welcoming and premium. It had to strike the right balance between the modern Scandinavian design and timeless elegance. Now, if you get the wrong balance here, it can be detrimental to the design. It can look way too corporate. It could look too naturey. People might get the wrong idea. We needed something that just fit perfectly. So I began exploring different typefaces, testing how they worked alongside the logo and how they reinforced the brand's core themes. What drew me to Larkin was its balance of elegance and warmth. It has a refined, slightly organic feel that complements the natural themes of Hearthstone while still maintaining a premium, high-end look. The soft curves and subtle details give it a welcoming personality, perfect for a Scandinavian naturist hotel that values freedom, well-being, hospitality, nature, sustainability. It also pairs beautifully with the icon. The contrast between the structured, geometric, and more expressive letterforms create a dynamic yet harmonious identity. From here, it's about applying our color palette. Using the images gathered in the mood board, I've already started to get a sense of what colors I'll be using, and the primary color being green, as Hearthstone is a kind of a naturist hotel, and green gives that good nature feeling. Picking colors for any sort of brand can be kind of challenging, but there are psychological and obvious ways of picking colors. For instance, our brand color is orange. That generally speaks to being more creative. Yellow kind of is excited. Red, passion. Could also be danger. Green is eco-conscious, but depending on the shade of green, you can make people think a lot of different things. So when we're deciding colors for any brand identity, it has to kind of match, because if it doesn't, people don't particularly understand it. So the pale colors that we've chosen here just work really nicely. One thing that I was able to do on the iPad was create a mini guidelines for the brand. If you don't know, when you're creating a visual identity, we need a place to put all that information. And this one sheet, one page style guides for Hearthstone just worked. Brand guidelines are essentially a toolkit for designers and that brand to keep on brand throughout all their social media marketing, throughout all the pamphlets, maybe even the coasters. Anything that their brand is touching should refer back to those guidelines. So, for instance, we have the colors in there, we have the typography that we use, we have the logos and how they could be used. For this company, because it's not real, we kept it really simple, so we just have a simple style guide. However, if you want to go check out templates of brand guidelines, I'll link that below. Now, with the brand guides and color palette, this allows me to experiment with all the different ways Hearthstone's logo could appear and still remain recognizable. We don't just have one lockup for a logo. We have the icon and the logo type. The logo type can work around different compositions to the icon. And this is one of the most fun parts. This is where we start to see an identity system work. One of them is just simple icon and text, left to right. Another lockup is icon on top and text down below. This is like just a hierarchical composition. This is great for posters. This is great for just getting the information out there. And my favorite is the circular one, which is what we know as a badge composition. This has Hearthstone on the outside in the typography with the icon on the inside. It's really important for brands to have different lockups for logos, because if you're putting your logo on a website and you want the icon and the logo type, well, you can't pick the circular logo because it won't fit very well in the masthead, obviously depending on how you design it. So we create lockups and different versions of these designs of the logo to fit in different areas really well. Like the badge logo looks super good on a tag, or it would look great as a sticker, or somewhere just to get the full brand in a circular way. With that, we have everything we need to present the work to our client. But it's a bit basic. It's lacking that last bit of connection between fantasy and reality. We want to be flashy. And one thing is missing. One thing that every designer needs to do for their logos: create mockups. Now, mockups, I was a bit skeptical of whether this would work, and I'm shocked. After a bit of researching, I realized smart objects work in Affinity Photo. So I just downloaded one of the free mockups from this website, I'll link it down below, onto my iPad, opened it up in Affinity Photo, and there's this kind of setting that you can press that will import as much as possible Photoshop document smart objects. These smart objects allow you to click in them, change the design, click out, and the design will be implemented onto that mockup. It's crazy. So I chose this really nice tag mockup that I thought would look really cool. If I was presenting this to the client, showing it on a tag would be really nice. And it would also bridge that gap of fantasy and reality. I downloaded it, put it into Affinity Photo, clicked it, added my work by copying and pasting it in, and boom, we have a really simple tag mockup. We can show the logo as it would look like in reality. It's the biggest hack ever when you're showing a logo to a client, Don't just show them the logo by itself. Put it in a mockup, and you can do that on the iPad. So we've got the mockups, the logo, the colors, everything's there. But how do we share this with the client? Well, there's a few ways we could do this, but there's one genius way that I'm very excited about. And you probably wouldn't expect this, but Canva actually have something called brand kits. This is where you can upload onto Canva through your iPad or computer, logos, colors, type, even the brand tone of voice, images, symbols, graphics and icons. You can upload that to Canva, so when you hand over the work to the client, they can use all of that within their design work. Maybe you're not doing any more brochures for them. Maybe they are creating their brochures within Canva, which is perfectly reasonable for a lot of companies to do. Well, this way, we're able to just simply give them access to the brand kit. We can just send it to them. And you can just do this on the iPad itself. You can give them multiple versions of the logo, give them different type options and how it will work. You can even give them a tone of voice of how they should sound, uploading symbols and different images and graphics. We can do all of this in the brand kit. And I thought that was a pretty big feature to mention because you can do that straight from your iPad. Other than that, you could compress all of the work down into one zip file and email it off. But I think this way is a really nice way of sharing your work. It means the brand doesn't have to go searching and collating all of the files and documents. They can just use it straight from Canva. So there you have it. That's Hearthstone. We were able to create it all on the iPad, not even having to touch a computer, which is mad. And we're even able to create the presentation, the brand guides, create a brand kit and get it sent to a client. It's pretty much, I can't think of, it's crazy. So this video was made possible because Affinity basically challenged me. They said, can you actually do this? And we thought we'd give it a go. So big shout to Affinity for sponsoring this video and making it happen. If you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing for more. If you have any questions, leave them below and I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.